In the middle of a sprawling health resort in Battle Creek, Michigan, there was a room so private, so clinically strange, they called it the Sanctum Sanctorum. It wasn't a chapel. It was filled with machines designed to pump 15 quarts of water into a person's body in under a minute. Above this basement of high-powered enemas, wealthy industrialists, presidents, and inventors walked marbled halls, eating a new kind of food that tasted like absolutely nothing. They weren't there to relax. They were there to be purified by a doctor who believed the path to moral salvation began and ended with a completely empty, totally sterile digestive tract. That doctor's name was John Harvey Kellogg. And the tasteless food he invented to starve the human sex drive is still eaten by millions every single morning. The most ordinary thing in your pantry, the box of Corn Flakes, was never designed to be a breakfast food. It was a medical device, a weapon in a radical, cruel, and deeply documented war against the human body. And the industry it accidentally created has spent a century making sure you never find out why it was really made. In 1877, Kellogg published a book that became a smash hit, selling hundreds of thousands of copies, Plain Facts for Old and Young. It was a medical text that read like a horror story. Inside its pages, he meticulously cataloged 39 symptoms that he claimed were the inevitable markers of a secret vice. These signs weren't just physical, they were behavioral. Mood swings, bad posture, bashfulness, stiff joints, even a dimness of vision. He gave parents a checklist of terror, a way to medically diagnose a moral failing in their own children. And he drove them toward his bland diet as the only cure. But here's where it gets monstrous. Kellogg made it clear that if the cereal didn't work, harsher methods were required. The documentary record is explicit. In Plain Facts, he advocated for circumcision on young boys without anesthesia, writing that the brief pain attending the operation will have a salutary effect upon the mind, especially if it be connected with the idea of punishment. For girls, he occasionally recommended applying carbolic acid to the clitoris to burn away the source of unnatural excitement. His sanitarium treatments included tying children's hands, stitching foreskins shut with silver wire to make any contact excruciatingly painful, and using localized electrical shocks to discourage desire. He was not a fringe outcast. He was a fellow of the American College of Surgeons and a celebrated leader in the progressive health movement. This was medicalized punishment, performed in the name of purity. John Harvey Kellogg didn't just think sugar and meat were unhealthy. He had built an entire ideology around it, a system he called Biologic Living. To him, the human body was a machine, and the stomach was the engine. The fall of man itself, in his view, wasn't about an apple. It was a failure of diet. He believed that stimulating foods like meat, spices, and coffee didn't just excite the palate. They congested the pelvic organs, inflamed the nerves, and directly triggered what he called animal passions. This wasn't a metaphor. Kellogg theorized that the standard American diet was a direct physiological cause of masturbation, a solitary vice he believed would inevitably lead to physical wasting, insanity, and death. In his mind, the way to make a person morally pure was to deny the body any sensation at all. Pleasure, especially from food, was a dangerous on-ramp to a life of biological decay. The solution he engineered was a diet of total blandness, a plate of food designed to ask the body for absolutely nothing. The breakfast cereal aisle is a multi-billion-dollar monument to consumer amnesia. Possibly, there is a box in your kitchen right now. You've had it since childhood. Nobody questioned it, nobody explained it, but now you know what it was made to do. And that changes things, quietly, in the way that the best stories do. Because the next time you reach for it on the shelf, you'll understand something most people never will. The most ordinary objects in your life sometimes have the strangest architects. And the ones who built your world often had plans for you that you were never supposed to find out about. And this is everyday economies. We find the person, the law, or the meeting that made the world cost this much. So consider subscribing for more of these. The center of this system was not the operating theater. It was the hydrotherapy room. Kellogg was obsessed with the bowel, believing the colon was a cesspool of rotting meat that poisoned the body and the soul through a process he called auto-intoxication. He declared a healthy human should have 4 bowel movements a day. To achieve this, patients were subjected to the machines in the sanctum sanctorum. When water wasn't enough, he'd prescribe yogurt enemas, injecting probiotics directly into the rectum to reseed the gut. This wasn't a hidden backroom operation. It was the premier advertised treatment for the elite of the world. The therapy was the message. You must be emptied of everything. It was inside this strange laboratory of self-denial that the Corn Flake was born. In 1894, John and his younger brother, Will Keith Kellogg, were experimenting with wheat berries for a digestible bread substitute. A batch was boiled and accidentally left out overnight. By morning, it had gone stale. John, ever frugal, insisted they run it through the rollers anyway. Instead of a solid sheet of dough, the stale wheat shattered into dozens of thin, delicate flakes. When toasted, they were crisp and shelf-stable. John Harvey marketed them as granos. His primary excitement wasn't commercial, it was therapeutic. He had created a food that was physiologically inert, an easy-to-digest delivery system for grain that gave the body energy without giving it a single molecule of excitement. The cornflake was a sexual suppressant you could eat with milk. What followed was a scorched earth legal war that consumed the brothers for decades. John Harvey, seeing his brother's immense wealth, started selling his own health cereals under the Kellogg name. Will Keith sued him for trademark infringement. The battle reached the Michigan Supreme Court, and Will Keith won, securing the exclusive right to use the Kellogg name on flake cereals. That is why every box of Kellogg cereal today bears the red signature of W.K. Kellogg. It's not just a friendly touch, it's a legal brand. A scar from a fraternal war that permanently signaled to the world, this is the tasty version, not my brother's medical one. The brothers never spoke again. The irony doesn't stop with a family feud. While they were fighting, a patient named Charles W. Post arrived at the sanitarium in 1891 as a broken, suicidal businessman. He observed the Kellogg brothers' food research, saw its commercial potential, and reportedly offered to go into business with them. John Harvey, disgusted by commercial advertising, refused. So Post left the San, opened a rival inn right in Battle Creek, and launched Postum and Grape Nuts, a direct imitation of Kellogg's process. Post had no religious baggage, only a genius for marketing, and by 1900, he was a millionaire, building a rival empire on information he gathered as a patient. Kellogg's crusade was being stolen and monetized in real time. For 20 years, Will Keith Kellogg was the bookkeeper, the business manager, the man John Harvey treated like a servant, famously making him trot alongside his bicycle while taking dictation. Will Keith saw the flake cereal for what it would become, the first modern convenience breakfast. But he also saw the fatal commercial flaw. The cereal was too bland. No one outside a religious sanitarium would actually choose to eat it. Will Keith wanted to add something that would make the biggest difference in the history of food marketing. Sugar. To John Harvey, this was a theological betrayal. Sugar was a stimulant, a poison that would undo the cereal's entire moral purpose. In 1906, realizing his brother would rather kill the business than sweeten the medicine, Will Keith broke away. He founded the Battle Creek Toasted Corn Flake Company and paid his brother for the manufacturing rights, but moved forward with his own recipe, the one that tasted good. In that moment, the moral mission of the cornflake was executed and replaced by a commercial one. Palatability won. Profit won. And Kellogg lived every letter of his own ideology. In 1878, he married Ella Eaton. Biographical records, including their own correspondence, document that the marriage was likely never consummated. He reportedly spent his honeymoon writing another anti-sex manuscript. For 40 years, they lived in separate bedrooms, never having biological children, instead raising over 40 foster kids. To John Harvey Kellogg, procreation was a regrettable biological necessity. The rest of life was meant to be a pure, non-stimulating, digestive machine. His entire existence was a radical, personal experiment in denying what he saw as the body's decay. The institutional factory for this experiment was the Battle Creek Sanitarium. Known as the San, it was a palace of purity. At its peak, it wasn't just a hospital. It was a world-famous luxury resort employing over 1,000 staff, including 30 physicians. It had its own power plant, its own labs. It could house over 1,000 patients at a time, and the guest list was staggering. Henry Ford, Thomas Edison, John D. Rockefeller Jr., Amelia Earhart, President Warren G. Harding. They were met at the train station by liveried coachmen and personally escorted by Kellogg into a world of strict dietary control and rigorous internal cleaning. But beneath the cereal wars and the health spas lies a far darker layer. The ideology that truly drove John Harvey Kellogg's life work: eugenics. For him, biologic living wasn't just about saving the individual soul. It was about saving the entire white race from degeneration. In 1906, the same year his brother commercialized the cereal, John Harvey founded the Race Betterment Foundation. He organized national conferences that featured the most prominent eugenicists in America, where he laid out a formal plan for a new species of man. This plan was chillingly specific. Kellogg advocated for a massive eugenics registry to track the pedigrees of fit Americans and force them to breed. He called for the state-mandated sterilization of those he labeled criminals, idiots, and the feeble-minded. He was an outspoken opponent of what he called race mixing, which he believed led to the biological deterioration of the white race. He argued that false ideas about personal liberty were an obstacle to sanitary progress. He successfully lobbied for Michigan's far-reaching sterilization laws, which resulted in nearly 4,000 documented cases of forced sterilization. In Kellogg's complete worldview, the right breakfast could save a boy from sin, and the right genes, enforced by the state, could save civilization from collapse. The cornflake and the scalpel were tools for the same terrifying vision. The ultimate irony of this story was cemented not in a courtroom, but on Wall Street, over a century later. The company Will Keith built, Kellogg's, had long since become a global snacking giant. But by the 2020s, it was a company caught between the health narratives it marketed and the sugar it sold. In December of 2025, a deal was finalized that would have made John Harvey Kellogg's spirit shudder. Mars Incorporated, the largest candy manufacturer on Earth, the company that produces Snickers and M&Ms, acquired Kellanova, the spin-off of the cereal giant, for $36 billion. This is the terminal point of the story. The brand, built on a platform of total self-denial, sexual suppression, and anti-indulgence, is now legally and financially fused with a global empire of indulgence. The Corn Flake, invented to starve desire, now shares a corporate balance sheet with pure chocolate. The breakfast cereal aisle is a monument to a memory we've all agreed to lose. Millions of people in 2026 will pour a bowl of cereal, glance at the vibrant packaging, see the claims of vitamins and whole grains, and believe they are eating a simple, wholesome breakfast. They won't see the sanctum sanctorum. They won't see the Race Betterment Foundation. They won't know that the original recipe was intentionally bland because taste was considered a physiological evil that led to damnation. We are still eating the food of the purity machine. John Harvey Kellogg tried to use a simple flake of grain as a leash for the human soul. He wanted to control what he saw as a filthy, decaying animal impulse, right down to the last bowel movement. He failed. Not because he was wrong, but because his brother realized that no one wants a medical treatment for breakfast. They want something that tastes good, something fast, something that doesn't ask questions. So that's what the industry sold us: a box of amnesia. A food that has traveled so far from its horrific, radical origins that the most disturbing thing about it now is not what's in it, it's that no one remembers why it exists at all. And today, that cereal is consumed by millions of people every morning who have never heard his name, who don't know about the bowel machines, who have never read plain facts for old and young, who have no awareness that the product in front of them was once a medical instrument, designed, packaged, and institutionalized by a man who believed that the right bowl of cereal could save a child from insanity and save a race from extinction.